Today, the topic of our discussion is a Tier 8 heavy tank in the American branch, the T-32. We will talk about the tactical features of this vehicle, analyze its strengths and weaknesses, and compare it with its brothers in arms, the other Tier 8 heavy tanks. So let's talk about the virtues of this combat vehicle. First, compared to its predecessor, the T-29, a Tier 7 heavy tank, the T-32 has a very compact size, which is beneficial to the overall visibility factor of the tank. And this, in turn, together with an excellent view range, often allows the T-32 player to locate the enemy firsthand and deal damage without being seen. Second, as with the majority of American heavy tanks, the T-32 has a very sturdy turret that can be very hard to penetrate not only by Tier 8 tank guns, but even the ones on Tiers 9 and 10. Third, the rapid-fire gun with excellent elevation arc angles allows efficient implementation of the potential damage and poses a serious threat to the enemy on the battlefield when properly used. Fourth is that the tank has good mobility. It can be used to support Allied attacking forces, whether it's an IS-3 or an AMX-50-100, or you can even push a certain direction all by yourself. But the tank has its disadvantages. One of the most significant ones is that it has the worst armor penetration and accuracy of any cannon, 198mm, on its tier, not counting premium Tier 8 tanks, which have a more gentle balance distribution and don't often fall into the world of pain. So it's better to combat at short and medium distances, carefully aiming at the enemy vehicle's weak points. Weak armor on the sides and rear can't guarantee protection from low-level vehicles with low armor penetration on their guns. Artillery fire presents a particular threat. Although good frontal body armor and the sturdy turret are capable of protecting the vehicle from the high-explosive shells of an SPG, we still advise you not to waste hit points participating in senseless attacks and to quickly think through all of your maneuvers. After the analysis of the strengths and weaknesses of the T-32, it's worth looking at the order of modules to research and the tank's upgrades. Since most of the top-end modules, namely gun, engine, and radio, on the T-32 are compatible with the previous tanks, the vehicle's leveling is considerably simplified if your hangar already has an elite T-29 by the time you get the T-32. In this case, to get the T-32 to top-end configuration, you only have to research the turret and suspension. We recommend you research the latter using free experience if possible. Due to the lack of load limit, the original suspension does not allow you to install the already researched top 105mm gun T5E1, and the armor penetration of 170mm on the stock gun is not always enough when battling with higher tier opponents and sometimes your Tier 8 brethren as well. Therefore, before researching and buying the T-32, we urge you to fully research and level the previous tank, the T-29, which is also a very convenient combat vehicle. So, if you have researched the T-32 using free experience or simply have not researched all of the T-29 modules, you should first level the suspension, cannon, and the turret, and only then install the engine and radio. Now on to the selection of equipment for the tank. We're already familiar with the American heavy tank's stabilizer that improves the accuracy and motion, and the fire rate improving rammer should definitely be installed on the T-32. Through their use, your weapon can fire more accurately on the move, and sometimes you can respond with 2 shots for 1 shot of the enemy. So it can't hurt to know the reload time of potential opponents to properly plan the attack. You can install different modules into the third slot that will be helpful when properly used. This can be ventilation, which has a small, barely noticeable impact on all the characteristics of the vehicle, or optics, which will improve the view range, or enhanced gun-laying drive, which will facilitate aiming at enemies' weak spots. The crew training is quite typical for the majority of heavy tanks, and the T-32 is no exception. The first skill to learn for all crew members except the commander is repair, which makes it easy to repair damaged modules. This is a priority skill. Without it, the tank with a broken track turns into a perfect target for watchful artillery, which won't miss a chance to turn your war machine into a pile of twisted metal. The commander's first skill should be Sixth Sense, and then repair, and then Jack of all trades. Second and third skills for the other crew members can be selected at will. Usually it will be clutch braking and off-road driving for the driver, snapshot and armor for the gunner, and safe stowage and adrenaline rush for the loader. You can select camouflage as the third skill for all of the crew members without exception. This will reduce the tank's overall visibility rating. The choice of consumables is quite standard: first aid kit, repair kit, and fire extinguishers. You can take gasoline instead of the extinguishers since the tank rarely catches fire. Now, knowing the strengths and weaknesses of the tank, using the appropriate modules and with the appropriate crew skills selected, we can proceed to the analysis of optimal combat tactics. When playing with the T-32, try to make the most of the surrounding landscape. Sand dunes, rocks, and destroyed tank bodies are ideal firing positions for this vehicle. While hiding the weak body and showing only the sturdy turret that isn't easy to punch through, you can consistently deal damage with maximum safety for yourself. For example, in a typical city map such as Himmelsdorf, excellent firing positions for your vehicle will be scattered along the Banana, a small narrow street. Located at the base of the castle hill, there are piles of broken bricks and stones. Successfully hiding the tank's body behind them, you can hold an important position for a long time despite the superior forces of the enemy, and then, after waiting for help of allies, switch to a decisive counterattack. On a map with a lot of open spaces, such as Sand River, we strongly recommend you use different cover variations. Sand dunes and hills will provide safe cover for the body of the tank, and excellent elevation arc angles will allow you to comfortably deal the potential damage and control strategically important areas. Do not underestimate meeting the enemy in close combat. Most tanks have a higher profile and worse elevation arc angles, so they will have to shoot at the T-32's sturdy turret, aiming for the commander's hatch while in a clinch, while you can shoot into the enemy's body and turret, depending on the enemy's tank armor specifications. That is why, as you can see, the King Tiger can't consistently penetrate our armor. Worse angles of arc elevation just do not allow it to lower the gun and shoot the body, which is poorly armored compared to the turret. While we can easily aim at the big commander's hatch and consistently deal damage. And since we are speaking about combat tactics against the King Tiger, we should also consider tactics against other same-tier tanks. The VK4502A, the predecessor of the VK4502P, OFS B, is very similar to the King Tiger, so the tactics for dealing with it are similar. This German tank's armor can be easily penetrated head-on through the lower armored sides and rear. If possible, try to initiate a clinch. Then you will have an opportunity to penetrate the enemy's armor head-on through the upper front part. It has worse armor compared to the same part of the King Tiger or the commander's hatch. Our most common enemy in random battles will be the Soviet heavy tank IS-3. The upper frontal part of the tank has good armor and is located at an acute angle, so don't try to punch through it with your gun. This also goes for the small round-shaped turret. For guaranteed penetration of the opponent's armor, we advise to aim for the small but quite thin lower armor plate. When clinching with the IS-3, it can be penetrated through a vulnerable armor plate over the cannon mantle or the small commander's hatch. The IS-3 can be easily damaged on the sides, drive wheel, and from the rear. To be victorious in duels with the American heavy T-34, it's worth remembering that the one-shot damage of your tank is lower compared to the enemy, but you have a higher fire rate, so the main goal is to consistently deal damage. Even a single miss or hit without damage can be a fatal mistake. The T-34 can be easily damaged on the front, sides, and rear, but don't try to shoot it in the turret. Like most of the American tanks, it has heavy armor and can't be hurt with your gun's penetration of 198 millimeters. The specific combat usage of the tank strongly depends on the overall level of combat itself. When getting into high-level combat with heavy tanks of tiers 9 and even 10, you should conduct an elaborate and cautious game. Your actions should be coordinated with those of your teammates. While moving with the main attacking force or a bit behind them, supporting them with fire and not taking damage, you will be a great help to the team. Don't go wasting all of your hit points and leaving to the hangar at the beginning of the fight. Once you get into a comfortable level of battle, when teams have Tier 8 medium and heavy tanks on top, you can really feel all the versatility of this combat vehicle. The T-32 is perfect for attacking the main key positions on a variety of maps, whether it's the alley on Prokhorovka, the mountain on Cliff, or the valley in Strepes. Cohesively working together with allies, in a short period of time, you can achieve strategic advantage in these areas, which then leads the team to victory. In case there are no other attacking tanks on your team, or you are planning to meet and repel the assault of the enemy, the T-32 also feels good on defense. Like when you hold important positions like the village on the map Westfield, the plateau on the map Karelia, or the valley on the map Fjords. Based on the aforementioned, we must conclude that the T-32 is a great all-purpose tank. It can be used as an attack vehicle, along with the IS-3, the IS-6, the VK-4502A, the AMX-50-100, as well as a defensive tank like the King Tiger, the Lova, and the T-34. In both cases, the T-32 loses to narrow specialists. Compared with assault tanks, it is inferior in mobility, and compared to defensive tanks, the weakness of the weapons becomes visible because of mediocre accuracy and armor penetration. However, the tank has its own niche, maps with a big drop of relief as well as the tactics in a clinch. In this case, we can nullify the cons of the T-32 and use its pros to the fullest. That is all for today. We sincerely hope that we helped you make a good choice, and we are waiting for the comments on the guide on the World of Tanks forum. Until we meet again.